Hey, today I will be talking about Venus in mythology. I might repeat some of the facts that I have mentioned in my previous video. I hope you will not mind. Venus, a late Old English from Latin Venus, in ancient Roman mythology, the goddess of beauty and love, applied by the Romans to Greek Aphrodite and Egyptian Hathor. By 1570s, applied in English to any beautiful, attractive woman. In the beginning, the world was ruled by Uranus, the sky father, and Gaia, the earth mother. Uranus became oppressor and overlord and was overthrown by his son Cronus or Saturn. He lay in wait for his father and he castrated him with a sickle. The seed and the remains of the primal god were scattered throughout heaven and earth. Some of it fell into the ocean and gave birth to Venus. She was riding on a seashell, and when she stepped ashore on the island of Cyprus, grass and flowers sprang up her feet, and the seasons, daughters of Themis, clothed her. She had no childhood or infancy. She emerged as a fully grown young woman. The other story of her birth is that she was conceived like the rest of us, in this case between Zeus and the earth goddess Dione. The name Venus is from Roman goddess of love, beauty, fertility, and victory. There are many names for Venus. The Greeks, she was Aphrodite, meaning born from the sea foam. She was known as the Aphrodite Anadomine, the foam-born one emerging from the sea. Her bird was dove, known for her lustful nature. Her tree was myrtle, and her sacred place was the island Cyprus. She was also called the golden, smiling Aphrodite. Aphrodite Pelagia, meaning she of the ocean. In Sparta, she was called Aphrodite Morpho, meaning she of the various shapes. The goddess was worshipped under the name Urinum, meaning the wide wandering one, which may be associated with the moon. Born from primal chaos, she danced on ocean waters. Urinum transformed the north wind into a serpent called Ophion. The serpent twisted around her, impregnated her, and she gave birth to the cosmic egg. Ophion wrapped himself 7 times round the egg split in two, and all creation came out. One of Aphrodite's first lovers was Nerites. He captured her attention when she was still living in the sea. He refused to accompany her to Olympus. She begged him to go, offering him a pair of wings. He refused, so she gave the wings to Eros instead and turned Nerites into a mussel or shellfish which lives in a shell burrowing among the underwater reefs of the Mediterranean. Another lover was Argonaut Butes. He was part of Jason's crew, and he was the only one of the crew seduced by sirens and jumped overboard. That was the kind of action Aphrodite respected, so she rescued him and sent him to Sicily, where she gave birth to their son Eryx. Now, as it befits the fertility goddess, she had many children. Some are quite unforgettable, like Roman hero Aeneas, Eros, Priapus, and Hermaphroditus, just to name a few, the natural progeny of the goddess. Her other lovers were Poseidon, Hermes, Dionysus, and even Zeus. Venus, or Aphrodite, when she was within the world of romance, she was irresistible. But when she ventured beyond that sphere, like when she entered into battle, her efforts were a failure. Psychologically, one might say the desire for intimate love and relationship is one of the first human functions to appear from that ocean of unawareness symbolized by Pisces, where Venus is exalted. As the goddess of love and beauty, Venus became the planet of relationship, and as she is traditional ruler of Libra, which is the marriage sign, this is fitting. It should be said here that even though we may connect Venus with relationship, she is more associated with love, and it is important to differentiate between these two, as marriage is not always about love. In Aphrodite's or Venus's world, love was always the answer, and the punishment usually fits the crime. Now we can see that in Venus's own marriage. Her husband was Vulcan or Hephaestus, the god of fire and forge, the oddest of the gods and in some ways the most human. He was rejected by his mother, laughed at by other gods for terrible reason. He was physically flawed. Now he married Aphrodite or Venus in exchange to release his mother Hera, whom he had captured because he was angry at the way she treated him. There are other versions of this story, but no matter what the story of Vulcan is, Venus did marry him, but she did not attend to her domestic duties. Most of her attention went to extramarital affairs with gods and mortals. With Mars, the god of war, she had a very long love affair and had his children. And it may seem as Vulcan himself was partly guilty for Venus's infidelity as he was married to his work. I didn't really see the physical needs of Venus for intimacy and relationship. Still, once Vulcan found out about their affair, he got angry, even though his fate was always to be betrayed by his beautiful wife. So he forged chains of gold, which he hid in the overhead rafters of his palace on Olympus. He told Venus he was going on a vacation to his sacred island of Lemnos. Now Venus invited Mars to join her after her husband's departure. But Vulcan was nearby, and as Venus and Mars were getting intimate, the magic net came down and trapped them in the bed. Now, being very angry, Vulcan called upon all the deities of Mount Olympus to witness his wife's shame. Now, at some point, they were both released at the demand of Neptune from the chains of love. So in a natal chart, we can almost say Venus is interested only in romance, glory, and the passion of the moment. It does not necessarily show long-term commitment. But Hephaestus was, after all, happy. His marriage with Aphrodite fell apart, but he did marry again. This time the youngest Grace built her a beautiful house made of bronze and made many beautiful objects. Venus rules Taurus and Libra, and in classical Greece she ruled Taurus. In the Olympian system, also Taurus. And as the goddess of that sign, she emits raw sensuality, representing the part of the goddess whose sole purpose is to enjoy abundant physical joy and world. And because of that, she was sometimes known as the Aphrodite Pandemos, patroness of common love. Now, in Libra, she is more concerned with relationships and interplay that exists in the relationships. In Libra, opposites are met and brought into harmony, as Venus's role here is that of a harmonizer, bringing opposites together in some workable fashion, let's say taming wild elements through the act of lovemaking. Venus was known to be the most beautiful, but that was never enough. She needed to be constantly validated. She was threatened by other beautiful women, and she often revealed her jealous, envious, and angry side. Now, Psyche was condemned to death by Aphrodite, and as she was insulted because people started speaking about a mortal woman that was more beautiful than the goddess of love. Venus, or Aphrodite, was indirectly the cause of the Trojan War. It all started with a contest to name the most beautiful goddess. The choice was narrowed to three: Juno or Hera, Pallas Athena, and Aphrodite or Venus. Now, Zeus was chosen to decide, but he politely declined as he was the husband of Hera and father of Athena, and suggested that a young shepherd named Paris, the handsomest man alive, would be a good choice as he would be a fair judge. Now, there are versions of story who say that Paris did not take a look at the goddesses. He had to choose by the fairest by the gifts they have offered him, while others say that he did take a look at the goddesses. So Juno or Hera offered to make him ruler of many lands, Pallas Athena offered victory in all battles, and Aphrodite offered him the fairest woman in the world. He chose Aphrodite, and she led him to Helen of Troy, the wife of Menelaus. He abducted her, and that was the cause of the Trojan War. Now, Aphrodite, or Venus, repeatedly humiliated all deities by causing them to fall in love with mortals. Finally, Zeus decided to punish her. One day, Aphrodite noticed Anchises, a Trojan prince, on the slopes of Mount Ida, and fell in love on the spot. She was determined to seduce him, so she appeared in front of him in the guise of a mortal girl. She was so luminous that he was certain she was a nymph or a goddess. Now, Aphrodite assured him he was wrong, and to convince him, she invented a biography. She also suggested poor man to introduce her to his family, and said so many things that he finally believed her. Thinking they were going to get married anyway, he thought, why postpone love? Why restrain themselves? Afterwards, she revealed her true nature, that she was a goddess, and he was filled with fear and begged her to keep him from harm. Once again, she assured him no harm will come to him as long as he keeps quiet about the encounter. She also told him that once their son, not yet born, was 5 years old, she would bring him to him. If anyone should ask who the mother was, he was to say she was the daughter of a wood nymph, beautiful as a flower. If he revealed the truth, Zeus would throw his thunderbolt at him. Now, for a long time, Anchises kept his secret, until one day, in a drunken state, he bragged that he had slept with the goddess of love. He was punished immediately. But there are some disputes whether he was struck by lightning and crippled or blinded by bees. Now, at the end of the Trojan War, he had to be carried by his son Aeneas, the only one of Aphrodite's children to inspire maternal feelings in her. He was injured, but he helped his father, who later died when they reached the western tip of Sicily. According to Virgil, the Roman poet, Aeneas visited Anchises in the underworld and had many descendants, like Romulus, Remus, and Julius Caesar. Thus, Aeneas, even as a child of Aphrodite, was a minor figure to the Greeks, but he is thought of as a founding father of Roman mythology. As for the Adonis, another important figure in the mythology of Aphrodite or Venus, his story went something like this. Smyrna, or Mira, the daughter of King Cinyras of Cyprus, was rumored to be more beautiful than Aphrodite or Venus. Cinyras' wife bragged of her daughter's beauty and caught Venus's attention. Aphrodite, Venus, was vengeful, and she decided to punish Mira by causing her to fall in love with her own father. Mira, in her desperation, took advantage of a festival in honor of Demeter, during which men were encouraged to shun their wives and make love with other women. And she went to her father for 12 or 9 nights in a row, depending on who is telling the story. Now, he did not know who the young woman was, and one night his curiosity won, and he carried a lamp into the room, where he saw his daughter in his bed. He was horrified and pursued Mira to kill her, and as he raised his sword, she begged the gods to help her, and she was turned into a mere tree. Now, 10 months later, a wild boar tore into the tree with its tusks, and a baby was born, the beautiful Adonis. Aphrodite immediately fell in love with him. Adonis was taken to Persephone in the underworld to be raised, and both goddesses, Persephone and Aphrodite, fell in love with him and wanted him for themselves. They asked Zeus to mediate, and he passed the problem to Calliope, muse of epic poetry. Now, she decreed that for the third of the year he would stay with Aphrodite, other third with Persephone in the underworld. And for the remainder of the year he could go where he wished, freed from the demands of both goddesses. Here, the dishonest side of Aphrodite emerged, and she used her powers to make Adonis fall in love with her and stay with her. In anger, Persephone told Ares, or Mars, and he disguised himself as a wild boar and challenged Adonis on the slopes of Mount Lebanon, where Adonis was gored to death in Aphrodite's sight. Now, Aphrodite flew to his side, but he was dead on a field of letters. In memory of her beloved, she turned the blood flowing from his wounds into the red anemone. The Babylonian myth of Ishtar's descent, originally a Sumerian tale, is one of the oldest stories in the world, and it is connected with Venus. Her story goes something like this. The goddess Ishtar, queen of love, descends into the underworld to seek the soul of her dead lover Tammuz. While moving, she is stripped of all her glory by the guardians of hell. When at last she arrives in front of the queen of hell, she is hung on a meat hook. She was rescued by the will of the gods and restored, this time as a queen of heaven. This myth can be connected with the cycle of planet Venus. When Venus is ahead of the Sun, so when in earlier degree of zodiacal longitude, it will appear in the sky as the morning star. As it approaches the superior conjunction with the Sun, it will be invisible for a time as the goddess descends into the underworld. After that, planet will reappear as the evening star, occupying a later degree of zodiacal longitude than the Sun. She is now the queen of heaven. Now, the morning star Venus individuals may be described as being more impulsive in relationships, falling in love quickly, and the evening star Venus individuals may be more mature, having a greater concern with relationship, not seeing it as a pure romance. These relationships may not be more successful, but they could be more reflective, more cautious, and they may be more aware of love as deeply transformative process. And this will be it for today. I hope you have found this video somewhat interesting. Thank you for being with me here today, and I will be seeing you in a couple of days. Bye.